Welcome to the Video Creators Podcast. We help YouTube creators grow their audience and business with next-level tactics and strategies. Want to accelerate your channel's momentum, be more profitable, and change the lives of more people than ever before? You're in the right place. The Video Creators team has over a decade of experience providing YouTube strategy for brands like Disney, Warner Brothers, HBO, and even YouTube themselves. So far, our team is responsible for helping clients generate over 17 billion views on YouTube. And now, to help you, here's Tim, Lennon, and Delana.
Hello, creators. It's great to see you again, and welcome back to another Video Creators Podcast episode where we give you next level tactics so that you can grow your views, grow your subscribers, grow your audience and your business so that you can reach people and change more lives. And this week I have an interesting episode for you because we do this internal thing called StrataChat, and it's where all of the strategists on our team get together and we have internal conversations to edify each other and learn from each other and what we're working on with clients and everything in between. And we had a session just last week of our StrataChat, which we ended up recording actually for a team member that couldn't make it to the meeting. So we wanted her to have all of the discussion and everything that we had talked about. But during this conversation, we came to the end of it and we were like, man, we feel like this could be immensely valuable to so many creators that listen to us on a regular basis, so many creators that we personally work with, we feel like would find this immensely valuable and encouraging to you. So we're actually going to share a large majority of that conversation with you. And since we weren't planning on sharing this at the time of recording, we did talk about clients and some other specific details that are a little bit more internal, which we will be bleeping out. So if you hear that, that is why. We just want to protect private information from anybody that we're working with, as well as things that may be going on in the company.
I wanted to talk about burnout because everybody at Video Creators, Delana made a cracking joke about it yesterday. It's like, we teach you how to grow your YouTube channel, but we avoid ours like the plague. And like that's a reality. And I want to hear from you guys what burnout looks like, because Tim's gone through it, Ingrid's gone through it, Delana's doing it.
I'm currently doing
actively.
And so I'm finally, as a creator, I'm coming around to like, I'm editing now. I batch shot videos because I kind of got this breath of inspiration. I was like, hey, I can do this. So I'm editing, but I've got videos queued up to launch and to publish. But I'm seeing everyone on the team having come out of or being in the middle of this, I can't do it anymore. And like, that's got to be, I hear that from my clients too. They get in there and like, they just kind of have this, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to pull the plug on this channel. Like, that's the worst consultation to join, because it's like, well, I'll help you with as much as I can, but ultimately, if your drive is gone, this strategy won't help. And so I want to hear from creators that maybe not Delana, you can just keep it to yourself for now, like everything else. But maybe you can tell me what that burnout looks like. And if there's any way, once I realized this wasn't for the public, I was like, here we go. Are there things you see coming now? Because Tim, I'm sure you've gone through this a few times. Ingrid has been creating for years. Do you know when it's coming? Is there any way to remedy it? Or what if you're in Delana's position? What changes to help you overcome that stuck feeling of being burnt out like that?
I have thoughts on this. It's obviously something I've been thinking about a lot as I've gone through it. And I think that there's like multiple different things that can drive burnout on the platform. I think a lot of what we face with our clients is them feeling like they're putting in so much work and getting like this much in return for it. And it's hard to stay motivated whenever you're like, why do I even try? It's not going to go anywhere. Nobody's going to watch, blah, 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 blah. So I think that that's a huge factor. The other side of it that can be whether you're growing, whether you're experiencing good growth or not, is just that like as a creator, you, especially with a lot of the things that we teach of like pull more of you into it, what's your story, stuff like that, it just becomes, you start to like put this pressure on yourself that you have to do and say and present and be a certain way on your platform. And that just like, and that just like gets exhausting, where you're just kind of like, I just kind of want to like live my life without it being on display at all, you know, or my personal struggles and stuff like that. Like you just kind of want to, you're on display a lot, and sometimes just being on display, whether you're sharing a lot of your story or not, just gets tiring, and you're just like, all right, I want to back off and crawl into a shell for a little while.
I'm kind of going through exactly what she just said right now, because it's not that I don't know how to shoot a video. It's not that could I just shoot a tutorial? Yeah, absolutely. I can sit down and do that any day. But I'm in the middle of pivoting slightly into different kind of content, and it's not so comfortable. And I know what to do. I have no problem talking to other people about it all day long, but yet for some reason I'm struggling with even hitting record. So, which is interesting. It's something that I'm working on right now.
What holds you back from hitting record? Because I know what that perspective looks like as a new creator. Like I wasn't a creator until you said you're a creator now. Like I know what that tension looks like, because it's like, I don't know how to do this. Yeah. I know what to do, but I don't know how to do it.
Part of it is pressure. I have been digging into trying to find new drivers for creating content. So personally, I have been working on, because for me, it was all about the art and the technique and what can I teach before. And now all of a sudden, it's like everybody's so stuck and everybody's like, I need motivation. And it's kind of shifting that way. And it's not necessarily a 100% comfortable place to be, considering I'm going through it myself, which is literally what I should shoot, but that's not so easy to do. It feels very vulnerable, and the content itself has become very different, and I don't know, uncomfortable, a lot of pressure. I don't worry so much about the views and that kind of stuff at this point, because I feel like it's an experimentation phase and I'm okay with that. But I guess it's just the uncertainty, and even though I know what I'm doing, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, if that makes any sense whatsoever sometimes.
Another part of burnout for creators is like they may not be feeling pressure in any way, and they may also be getting fine results, but a lot of creators will start getting results from things that they're like not the most passionate about. Like they had one or two videos get really, really big, and now they feel like they just have to create that kind of content over and over and over again, and they start to feel stuck, and they do anything else, it just, in their words, it just tanks, you know, and that becomes really demoralizing for them, and then they feel like they don't feel like they have creative power anymore. It doesn't really feel like their channel is their own anymore, you know. They're just kind of like, I think it becomes more of a job for them, and with that, it is their job often, you know, and so like they have to keep going, and so I think they also get stuck in that.
How do you keep the excitement? I remember I had a consultation with a creator last spring, and he was in complete analysis paralysis, and he hadn't turned the camera on in months. He did a video on Zoom, and it became like one of the videos when COVID hit of how to even operate Zoom. And it wasn't necessarily so it's very much like what she just said. He kind of got pigeonholed in this thing. And then it was like, is that what I'm doing? You know, and it was working through that. And he even went through video labs and still didn't create, which I found interesting. It was a shame, because he was really good, but you know, what's that thing that pulls them forward? I don't know.
I think burnout happens in a few different ways. One way is everything in our life just goes through seasons, you know, like relationships do, unfortunately, unless you pay them to keep hanging out with you. But like favorite foods and even music tastes, and when you're having children, like there's seasons built in there, and interests. I mean, things go through seasons. So I think there's some people who burn out because that season is what they needed, like YouTube, and then that season's just over. And there's nothing wrong with that. And for them to extend that season makes you feel burned out really fast because you feel like you have to stick with it when it'd really be better for you not, and to move on. So I think that's one
That's
consideration.
exactly where I felt like I was, because I was like,
Yeah.
this thing served me really well for, it gave me exactly like the creative release and everything, and even led to me being here today, you know, and then I felt like I was, the way that I put it at the time, I don't know if you were there for it, Luke, but I was like, I feel like I'm trying to squeeze more juice out of a lemon that's already, there's no juice left in it. Like it's time to just grab some new fruit. So yeah.
But there's this unspoken or even spoken, I don't know, expectation that like you work so hard on this and you got to keep going. You haven't achieved all that you could have achieved and everything. And we think that was the purpose and the goal, when really it was like something we just need to express ourselves creatively for a little while. And all right, good. I got what I needed out of that and I can move on, you know? Now people don't think that. I think we have this mentality that we start a book, we need to finish the book, right? We type thing. And I'm like, I'm over it, but
yeah.
whatever. And so if I got what I needed from this, like I don't have to finish it. But there is a thing in our society that's like, you failed if you didn't finish, or you were a quitter or something. I'm like, no, the point wasn't to finish this thing or get to 100 million subscribers. The point was for me to have a creative outlet. And so one of the things we talked about here, and you guys have heard this analogy before from the pumpkin plan, but we kind of took the analogy of the seed to the distractions that are disguised as opportunities to grow the big pumpkin thing. Most people don't know what the big pumpkin is. And so they just think that they're supposed to do is get more views, more subscribers, or more money. But that's why we started asking questions like, all right, well, if you have more views, money, subscribers, like what would that do for you? And try to get to like the deeper root thing of like, oh, you actually just want to feel this way. Okay, well, you don't need more views and subs to feel that way. You actually just need to do this other thing over here. And if we just go with the surface level, like this is basically want this thing, we're just might be perpetuating the thing they think they're going to go after that's ultimately going to drive them into the dirt. And they're not actually going to achieve the big pumpkin thing because they haven't even identified what it is. And thus they don't know what's a distraction and what's an opportunity. It's hard to define those things if you don't know. So that's one thing that's going on. Another thing that's going on besides the seasonality thing is I think people are looking for meaning. I think they're looking for purpose. I think they're looking for fulfillment. And we all want that. We all need that. And sometimes people subconsciously think that if I have more money or I have more friends, more popularity or bigger house or, you know, whatever, less weight, whatever the thing is, that I would be happier. And so they grow the channel and they're experiencing success and they're finding out I'm not happier. I thought that this would lead to that and it's not. And then that leads to burnout because now you're grinding for something that's not serving. Like you were excited when you thought it was going to get you here, but when you start getting disillusioned that like that's not going to lead here, then you start burning out, right?
I had another thought that I was thinking about this actually whenever I think of my client, not that they Xavier, not that they feel this way at all, but I noticed like myself like projecting on them, which was they film like everything in their lives, like her having a baby and like all the stuff, like everything that happens in their life is a content opportunity. And I remember whenever I was creating content and like kind of wanting to go a little bit more that direction, I was like, I literally could not see my life, any part of my life, without it through the lens of like, is this good content? Is this a content opportunity? Should I be filming right now? You know, like all of these things. And that got really exhausting. That was the thing that was like, I just want my life to be my life, you know, like, and that was really hard for me because I think that there's like this pride element that comes into it where it's like, oh, but I want to show cool things that I'm doing. And it's like, but what if you just don't, you know? And what if you just enjoy it, you know? And that's been really, really healing for me. Like for me to just kind of like let that go and not do what in my mind, people expected of me.
Are there any obvious triggers that have let any of you know? And is there any way
A
to get
loss
out?
of desire to do it. I don't think the results are worth, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze anymore. I'd rather
Is
give
there any way
something
to
else with my
resurrect that
time.
before it goes all the way under? Or is that just, here it comes?
I think you can either take a break from it, and like I did for like a year and a half now. I think ultimately for me, it's like just giving myself the permission to like not do it anymore. Go build something in my workshop and build like a new desk for Dana or something. And I don't want to make a video about it, even though everyone on Instagram's like, you should make a food inspection channel. I'm like, no, that would defeat the purpose of what I'm doing here, because more is not always better. Bigger is not always better. And I think there's something to be said for being content. Like, yeah, I could make more content and take this to a much bigger business and serve a lot more people. But on the other hand, like, I got to start serving myself at some point, and I'm not going to sacrifice my energy for the sake of like, what if I made twice as much money? What would that do for me? Like, not really that much of anything. Like, nothing would really change, right? So I don't need twice as much money, and I don't really want what it would take to get to twice as much money. Now, I don't want to like decline. I don't want to slip backwards, and I want to make sure that you guys are enjoying what you're doing and that this is a fruitful, productive, energizing place for all of us. But that's why I think we also keep having these zone of genius conversations, because those things change for us over time. What did it for Delana when she was first hired is not what does it for her anymore. And though she's not doing that stuff anymore, right? So I think there's like this tension between like maximum efficiency and profitability and trying to keep crushing it, grinding it, and, you know, kill it and drag it home type of thing. And I get the point in that, but I don't really want where that takes me. So
yeah.
I was just going to say, I think when you hear from creators, you know, words like grind, language, a language shift, that's usually for me a sign the fun isn't there. Because at some point it becomes work versus it's about the edit. It's about, you know, getting the CTR and analytics come into the picture. Whereas before it was just about the art. It was just about creation. Yeah.
It's a really good book called Drive by Daniel Pink that talks about this. I read mostly in the context of I read it mostly to get better at how do I work with you guys, like, and what drives and motivates you. But what I came out with it, one of the biggest points is he tells the story of these artists who half the paintings were commissioned and half weren't. And they're all like world-class artists. And they have these judges come in and evaluate them without knowing which were which. And the commissioned art always scored lower than the expressive creative art, even though no one could tell that one was commissioned and one was not. And you would think that paying someone money to do something would actually motivate them to want to do it better. But the opposite actually happened. And that's really what's interesting about YouTube is that when I got started on YouTube, there was no partner program. There was no money here. It was just people doing it to creatively express themselves and to kind of join in this conversation that was happening on this platform. And then they introduced money to it, which I think was smart from a business perspective, but it has this other thing that they couldn't have foreseen. This is influence of like, now people are doing this for money, and that changes the way that you create. He bought this horse and buggy because he really just loved going out and taking this nice quiet ride through the backcountry roads, and just, it was really relaxing and life-giving for him. And so that was his hobby. And then this other person was like, oh, I'd love to have that too. Like, could I pay you to take it? He's like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, now I get to do this and make money at the same time. And so he started getting paid to take people on these nice horse and buggy rides through the countryside. And then the more he did that, the less he actually enjoyed the thing that he actually gave him life, because once you introduce money to it, it fundamentally changed why he was doing the thing he was doing, and the experience he was getting out of it. And it turned into a job for him, and he ended up disliking the horse and buggy rides. If he had just said no to the money and just left it be the thing that it was intended to be for him, the life-giving thing, like woodworking for me, like, then then that thing would continue to be life-giving. But money actually has this reverse. It does not drive people and motivate people after a certain amount of money. Giving them more money does not change the way they work or their behavior or even their satisfaction with their work. It actually just it doesn't always, but it can lead them to a darker place. And so it's really fascinating to read that from my perspective as a business owner, but also even for me personally. I'm like, no, I don't want to create, I don't want to build tables and sell it for people. That's to people who I want to build it and give it to them. Like that's more life-giving for me. And it does what it's supposed to do.
It's 100% why I never went into professional cooking. Because that is always that thing for me. That is my number one hobby. And it's something that I excel at. And every single person, anytime I ever cook for people, people are like, why do you not have a restaurant?
I know, exactly.
Like, because I would take the fun out of, I've run a restaurant, but that would 100% take the fun out of cooking for me. So that's why I never went down that path. So I very much relate to that, Tim. Very much relate to that. So I have a question. You guys
all going to work for free now? Is that where we're at?
I was going to say, that's a weird way to roll out the new pay cut.
You guys will enjoy your job better, I promise.
Oh my gosh.
No, I think there is a balance.
You can automate Tim's life.
That actually reminded me of a video that I was watching from my previous client, Ali Abdal. He made a video on, I forgot exactly what it was, like what the title was of the video, but in it, he talked about like this principle of, all these things that humans need to feel satisfied and feel like their life is valuable to them and to other people and stuff like that. And he was talking specifically about in the workplace. He said, although you may get value from your job and feel like you're contributing to something valuable in your job, ultimately you're there for money. Like if you weren't getting paid, you wouldn't be there, or at least you wouldn't be there as much as you are, and he was talking about it in terms of, and I like really wrestled with that because I was like, I can't do something. Like me and my brother are actually we talk about this because we're both like, we just cannot do something that we're not passionate about. It literally feels like that we know people who are just like fine to go to work and they just like, yeah, my job is my job and what I do at home is what I do at home, and they're like perfectly content with that. And that took me so long to wrap my head around because I was like, I cannot spend the majority of my time doing something that I'm just not like on fire about, and so I still don't know how I feel about that whole sentiment where I'm like, would I be here 40 hours a week if I wasn't getting paid? Probably not, but would I do the same thing in other ways? I probably would.
I would. That's what this for me. Like the thing I like doing, I think you guys know, is taking complex systems and making them and reproducing consistently results with a system like that results that most people find difficult to get. And you guys know all my stories in different parts. And I think that's part of why I'm kind of curious to try doing this with Volley, is like, oh, like this is a new way for me to see if I can help them unlock this thing in a month and take that skill. And I've never tried to grow an app before, like, can I do it there too? It's like the same thing. It's reverse engineer everything.
That's
but yeah, I'm not asking you guys to work for free, just so you know, like I do value each and every one of you and the value you bring to our family and to our clients and our business and everything too. So just to make that clear.
We get
I already
paid?
sent Hannah a text message about.
Get paid? You guys get paid?
You don't have to if you don't want to.
I thought this was just a recurring gig from Video Labs.
The thing that I do that does keep me wanting to keep going though is not the more money, because I told you I don't really need more money, but it's because the more money is an indicator that we're serving more people better. And that to me, I get excited about, not because what the dollar signs do, but because of like, oh, we get to serve more people and help them change more lives. And that's the theme, I think, that kind of like threads together everything that I do. But yeah, I think if you don't know what the big pumpkin is, I think it's really easy to hit burnout because you're going to be stuck in the hamster wheel, not really knowing where you're going. And what happens when you actually get there, or if you've ever arrived. So you just get stuck in this grind because you haven't defined what a win looks like. Like, I read the book Built to Sell years ago. And in that book, he talks about like, you should write down the number you'd be willing to sell your business for and put an envelope and put it in a drawer. And then he said, and years later, take it out, because the temptation is like, let's say you write 2.5 million on there. That would be a life-changing amount of money for you. And like, that would help you accomplish all the goals, let's say, for example, that you wanted to hit. And then you get an offer for 2.5 million, but then you're like, but if I just did these like 2 more things for like another 6 months, maybe even 8 months, it would be worth 5 million then. And then you're tempted to, but then like, if I did this thing, it'd be worth 10. And then you actually never get to you never hit the contentment point, because it could always be bigger. And then in the process of that, it starts slipping backwards. And then that forces like, oh, why didn't I get rid of this when I have the chance of 2.5 million, right? And so he's like, write the number down. And when it gets to the point where it would change your life and hit the goal you actually built this business for, then be content to sell it if that opportunity arose and presented itself. Don't get stuck in the trap of more, better, better, better. So I think that was helpful for me to define that's what the big pumpkin would look like if it got to that point. And not that I can't continue to grow up past that, but I can at least tell myself I've done what I set out to do. And I'm going to keep doing this because I love it. I enjoy certain elements of this more than I do others. I think just as all of us do, but I don't have to keep pushing myself to the point of burning out to get to this thing that I don't even know if I really want it anymore.
That's what Marty Bird's problem on Ozark is. Like, he laundered 8 million and then it just never stopped. There was never a point where he could buy out. But I'm teasing because I was just talking about this terrible show that we watched, but it does make sense. So he never stopped, even though he had plenty. And that's one of the things that sticks out to me. It's Warren Buffett, from the cameo appearance on the hit show The Office. He was asked how much he needed to make to be happy. And his answer is just a little bit more. That doesn't make sense, especially when you're Warren Buffett. But it also makes perfect sense because apparently he's after more.
Sounds like an exhausting life.
Yeah, actually it does.
But I was thinking about your original question of like, how do you know whenever it's coming on, like that burnout? And I don't know if it's this way for everyone, but I feel like I can feel the difference between I just don't feel like doing something in that moment versus I think about this thing that I feel like I need to do, and it literally immediately feels like it's sucking the life out of me. Just the thought of going to do that thing feels like it's just draining all the energy for me to go and do it. And that's how I know that it's like burnout and something else is going on here versus, oh, I'm just not in the mood to do this thing.
That's a great point.
Most of the time, whenever I'm just not in the mood to do it, I can just like put it off, and then I just feel good. Like, okay, well, I'll just do this tomorrow. And I feel okay with that. I actually just did that on Monday. There was stuff that I need to do and I could not bring myself to do it. So I pushed it to Tuesday and I had no problem doing it. I was like, okay, cool. I got the energy to do this now. And, or I have the ability, like I have enough willpower to overcome it versus it takes a mountain of willpower to do something that feels like it's just sucking the life out of me. And so that's the difference for me. But I think that the remedy for that, to be honest, I'm not sure that there's any like, oh, do this thing and then you'll want to do it again. I think the only solution that more people need to be willing to do is they just need to be honest with themselves. Why do I feel this way? Do I still want to do this thing that I wanted to do before? Do I feel like this is the only option for me? And just like literally just being completely transparent with themselves in order to actually get somewhere. Because sometimes you'll be completely transparent with yourself, and once you say, I just don't want to do this anymore, then all of a sudden it's just kind of like, well, actually, I do kind of want to do it, but I think I'm just going to take a break. Like different feelings can come out once you're just flat out honest with yourself, and you can get down to what you're actually feeling.
I feel that creativity is an ebb and flow. So, I've been doing what I do on my channel in some form for 25 years. And last year was the very first time that I came up against a wall. And I think that sometimes there are a lot of external forces, because I'm not burnout. I still want to make YouTube videos. I still want to serve my audience. I still have more to say. But sometimes there are just other things that get in the way. So it may present itself as burnout, but it may not necessarily be burnout.
What's this break look like for you, and how do you know when the break's over?
I don't think that my break is ever over, because the only thing that felt right was like closing the door, but not locking it. You know what I'm saying? Like closing the door, but saying I'm done, and I don't know if I'm ever going to go back in this room again, but I can if I want to. Like that option is open, but as far as everyone else knows, I could never come back. And that was really freeing for me. Whenever I did that, I had no freaking idea. I was just like, I know that this thing needs to close, but I don't know what else is the thing. It's been kind of confusing, but like so clarifying in other ways, because I knew that needed to close. And I also felt that I wanted and was, I guess you could say, I really don't like Christianese, but you could say feel called to do something more outside of, that's my own thing. And so I knew that there's something for me, but I don't know what it is. And I don't know how it's going to take form or anything in between. And I just knew that this had to close in order for me to make room for anything else to potentially come in. And so I just needed to take my eyes off of this thing. And so I had no idea. I was like, maybe I never become a content creator ever again. I don't feel like that's what's going to happen, but I was honest with myself and I was open to it, and I feel like those are always the moments when something big happens where you're just kind of like, you know what? I'll stop trying to control the outcome. Just, take me where I'm supposed to go. And I was actually at this point getting really, really anxious. And I was just this past week, because I started messaging Lennon, and I was like, I feel like I just get off of work and I'm just okay to be off work and not do anything else, not like work on anything else. And other than like cleaning my house and basic human living things, And that was super weird for me. I've never felt like that before. And for me to be that content for that long in living that lifestyle was very odd. So all of that to say that I had no idea how long it was going to be, if it was ever going to come back or anything like that. And I was getting really anxious with the idea of me potentially never having anything else, when I felt like there was supposed to be something else, until this past week, where I told you guys that I was like, I think I may have found the thing. I won't know until next week, but I think I maybe, it feels like right now this is the perfect thing that I made room for, but I won't know until I actually try it next week. So sorry to be vague on that front, but I've had to keep it I
got two hooks from her in a few days.
This is exactly why I felt like I needed to keep it to myself, is because it's all been so confusing for me to let this thing go and not know what else is supposed to come in and stuff like that, that I felt like I was looking at everything like, is this it? Is it that? No, that's not it, And then especially if I shared that with somebody else, then I felt like there was extra light on this thing that could potentially be it in my mind. And I just needed all of that to not be in play for me to, which is why it felt so important for me to not share it. So
I had a very similar experience. I took this job that I didn't really know anything about, but everyone's like, no, you're the guy. Okay. And Tim's like, all right, make a channel. I'm like, about what? And like that pressure for me was tough. And he actually quit asking me about it and just said, I think it's important for you to be regularly creating. And it hit me on a day where I didn't have any consultations. I was like, wait, I'm creative.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny when that pressure is not there, it doesn't feel like there's an extra spotlight. Hey, what are you working on? I don't know yet.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I think it's headed that direction. And like my value prop will probably change, to be real honest, because I think I was trying to mimic other things, and it's finally gotten to the point where it's like, well, yeah, I do like this stuff. I can
And
do
it's
this.
interesting that you said when the pressure wasn't there, that's when you realized you were creative, which is very much what Delana opened this whole conversation with, was the pressure,
I still like to create, but I don't want to create the stuff I've been creating for 8 years now. Or more for me. It started 2009.
Yeah.
So over a decade now.
But then it's hard to break out of that whenever you're trying to create something different in the same context, doesn't it? Like you're like, I'm here in the same place, but now I'm trying to switch into doing something completely different so that I feel creatively satisfied. And you're just like, but this doesn't make sense in my brain. At least how that was for me.
Well, for me, it makes sense in my brain. If YouTube was hit by an atomic bomb, and
go call TikTok.
No, it wouldn't be TikTok either. We'd have much bigger problems actually. But I wouldn't. I think I would just make a podcast talking about family life and business and marriage stuff, which I kind of have, but I make one episode once a month or something like that. So I would turn that into a business if I wanted to. I don't mind making money at that.
I feel like that was such an important conversation that so many creators do need to be honest about themselves. And obviously a lot of us personally, even on the team through our content creation journeys, we have felt the weight of that. And I really hope that it was just as valuable and encouraging as it was to us. Now, every week we like to leave you with a power tip, just something small, practical that you could take action on today if you wanted to. And in light of today's conversation, I actually wanted to give you a power tip of recommending a couple of books if you are going through exactly what we had talked about in this recording. I want to recommend a couple of books that might actually help you. The first one, if you are a faith-based, even if you're not a Christian, I feel like the faith-based aspect of it would probably still resonate with you. And that is the book, Every Good Endeavor by Timothy Keller. It talks about having a driving purpose behind what you do, but more importantly, it talks about the importance of rest. So if you are dealing with any sort of burnout, please, please, please check that book out. Another really good one if you're dealing with burnout is Making Ideas Happen by Scott Belsky. Now, this one may sound counterintuitive. How can it be good for burnout if we're talking about making ideas happen? But specifically, this book speaks to the creative heart and mind, and it speaks to the idea of workflow, a reactive workflow versus a proactive workflow. Those are two totally different things. And I see so many creators and people in my life that get so burnt out because they are in a reactive workflow and they don't even know it. And so getting yourself out of a reactive workflow so that you have the room to work on passion projects and shift things and change and reinvent yourself and everything in between, shifting to a proactive workflow and out of a reactive workflow is one of the most important things that you can do. So I recommend both of those books. Buy them on Amazon. I'll have them both linked in the show notes or in the description of the YouTube video. Thank you guys so much for listening or watching wherever you are. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to see you again next week. Bye.